is to look for what's living there. So what we like to do is look for benthic macroinvertebrates. So that's a big long word, but if we break it down, it becomes pretty easy. So benthic means bottom dwelling. So the things that we're looking for live on the bottom of the water. They're not the things that swim through the water. So we won't be looking for fish today. Most of the things that we look for are insects that live in the water. And that's where the macro and invertebrate part comes in. So do you think macro means big or little? Well, macro for our purposes means it's big enough that I can see it with my eye. I don't need a microscope to see it. Then the invertebrate part is it doesn't have a backbone. And so for our purposes, most of the things we're looking for are insects that live in the water. So why do we look for insects in the water? What do they tell us? Well, because they spend so much of their time in the water, they're a good indicator of water quality. They don't move around much. They move a little, but they stay in pretty much the same location all of the time. So they're fairly immobile. They spend a lot of time in the water, and they're easy to sample for. So those are all reasons that we look for macroinvertebrates. Some of these insects can be in really yucky water. It doesn't have to be very clean. Other insects need really clean water to live in. So when we find the species that need really clean water, we know that the water has to be fairly clean. If we find insects that can tolerate a lot of pollution, that makes us wonder about the quality of the stream if that's all we're finding. However, those insects are perfectly happy in clean water too. Our hope and the best sign for a healthy stream is to find a mix of many kinds of insects. When you're looking for macroinvertebrates in the water, one place to look is on the bottom of rocks. So I just pulled this rock out of the stream here, and we've got a couple of different insects on it. Some of these insects like to cling to hard surfaces, and so this is a good place to look. So we have damselflies and caddisflies, and I think maybe I saw a scud on here too. So picking up rocks and looking at the bottom of them can be a good place to look for macroinvertebrates. I'd like to talk briefly about freshwater mussels. Freshwater mussels are some of the most endangered species we have in the world. And so if you find one, and this one is empty, so we know it's not alive anymore, but if you find a live mussel, it's best to be very careful with it. We'll take a look at it and share it with others, but we want to carefully put it back in the stream to give it its best possibility for survival. Ways that we assess what the bugs are telling us is to use this chart here. So you notice that we have 4 different groups. Things that are in group 1 have to have very clean water to live in. They like lots of oxygen, lots of clear water, cool water. And as we go down the page, each one of these groups is a little more tolerant of less water quality conditions. So by the time we get down here to group 4, they can live in sewage if they have to, but they're perfectly happy in clean water too. To have a really nice sign of a healthy stream, we like to see a mix of all 4 groups. So common ones that we have found here at Eagle Creek have often been caddisflies, mayflies, right-handed snails, damselflies and dragonflies, and we have found some of those mussels here. We also usually find crayfish. to get up close and personal with your macro and to help you identify it is to use these viewers. It has a lid and we put the sample inside with water. You need to be careful when you handle these so the lid doesn't come off. It's best to hold it with the handles on both sides. If you look down through the top of the viewer, you get to see the back of what's ever in the viewer. But if you look through the side of the viewer, this way, you get to see the underside. Sometimes when you're looking at the underside, you can actually see the gills moving on these insects. So it helps you get a closer look at the insects and helps you identify them a little better. So this is the form that we use to come up with an index rating for the macroinvertebrates we found. This will tell us something about the health of the stream. So any group 1s that we found fall in this column, and group 2, 3, and 4. Each of these groups has a weighting factor. So group 1, because they show a little better water quality, get to score more points. So they have a weighting factor of 4. Group 2 has a weighting factor of 3. Group 3 has a weighting factor of 2. And group 4 has a weighting factor of 1. So let's do a calculation and see how this stream comes out. Mayflies, so I'm going to just put a check there, and caddisflies, and a right-handed snail. So we found 3 different kinds of insects in group 1. So we'll put a 3 here. This says number of taxa represented. Taxa just means groups. So we found 3 different groups or 3 different taxa. Here's 4. So 4 times 3 is 12. And we'll put that at the bottom. Then we'll go to group 2. We found damselflies and dragonflies and scuds and a crayfish. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 taxa. The weighting factor here is 3. So 3 times 4 is 12. Then we come to group 3. We found some planaria today and some black fly larvae. So that's 2 taxa groups. I'll put that here. The weighting factor here is 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then we come to our last group. We found some aquatic worms and some left-handed snails. So 2 taxa groups here. We put our 2 here. Our weighting factor is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Now we'll add these together across. 12, 12, 4, and 2. So we have 24, 28, 30. So we put 30 in our box at the bottom. If we look at our little rating scale here, we see anything above 23 is excellent. So we had a great sampling day, and it told us that the quality of our water is in pretty good shape.